morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're listening to the show. My name is Ronald Bernard, and it's a great honor for me to present the show called All About Brockton. For the show today, we have with us the state representative, Michelle DuBois. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, Ronald. Thank you for having me on All About Brockton.
Thank you for accepting our invitation and to be on our platform. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm the state representative for the 10th Plymouth District. I was elected in 2015, honored to be the state representative for Brockton. Prior to being the state representative, I was a Brockton City Councilor for 10 years, the Ward 6 of Brockton, which is like the Brookfield, Ashfield, Lithuanian Village area. I grew up in Brockton. I went to Brockton Public Schools. I graduated in 91, long time ago. Went off to college, went to Mass College of Liberal Arts and graduated. And through all that, at 53, here I am with you today.
Okay, well, thank you. And grew up in Brockton. So what are your memories of Brockton during your adolescence you would like to share with us?
Well, I grew up very poor in Brockton. My family was lucky enough and had a real dedication to work that they were able to scrape together to provide a single family home for us to live in, but it was always a struggle. My mom worked really hard to put an above ground pool in the backyard so myself and my siblings would have a place to go because it was the 80s and there was a huge crack epidemic in Brockton, and it was very dangerous at certain parts of the 80s. And so I had a supportive, loving family that had a lot of challenges, and I grew up among many other families that were in the same boat. So I knew that there was a lot that my family struggled with that the average family, especially those you see on the television or the ones that are lifted up in the community, didn't struggle with. But it was a nice upbringing with a lot of difficulties as well.
Okay, and through that, experience, do you have any person or people who have kind of influenced you to become the person you are?
It's so interesting. I would say there was a broad group of people. My family went to St. Casimir's Church, which is in the Lithuanian Village. So there were a lot of pastors and folks in my priests and folks in my world, nuns. There was a whole area where nuns lived at the church I went to. So there were a lot of people that were really dedicated to doing good in the world in my neighborhood. And so I would think because my mother was very religious, had an influence over me, as well as my mom and my dad. My mom was really the cornerstone of my family. She's still alive. We just celebrated her 80th birthday yesterday. Yes. Thank you. Praise God for that. Right. And so she's a really hard scrabble woman who had a lot of struggle in her life. She never did anything wrong, but turned all that struggle into focusing on her family. So I think my mother had a lot to do with it through the years. In Brockton, sometimes when you're really low income and you don't have a lot of power, people aren't lining up to find you jobs. They're not lining up to do things for you. So a lot of it, when you grow up in those situations, in any community, I assume, if you grow up really poor and without a lot of power, you really have to have a lot of self-determination. And so that was a big element in my life as well. I had a good close friend who was super smart, graduated #1 in the class. So she kind of pushed me along as far as education, though I was never at that tier to become, class valedictorian. But those friends that really focused on education helped me have more of a focus on education. My parents were really busy working, so we were kind of like what I call free-range children. So we were out there, and a lot of my friends in the same situation, they really got caught up in the drugs and the alcohol and the gangs and the danger. And I often kid with some of my adult friends who knew me when I was young that I said I spent most of my education in my bedroom crying because I was so shy. But I've really overcome that. Yep. And having a bedroom to go to when you're a kid is a blessing too. So it was a good childhood, but full of obstacles.
Perfect. And now, what has driven you to to your commitment to public service?
Well, I've been an empathetic person my whole life, even from a child. If there was someone in need or an animal that was hurt, I was always wanting to help. And then when I went to college and I came back, I knew that I wanted to do something that helped other people. So I sought out a professional career in nonprofit world, nonprofit management. I've worked at a lot of homeless shelters. I worked a long time ago when I was younger at St. Francis House, New England Shelter for Homeless Veterans, Pine Street Inn. I have worked at the Justice Center, South Coastal Counties Legal Services, doing fundraising. So I was like a nonprofit administration person in my professional career, and always a community activist around environmental justice, and a community activist around civil rights and the rights of all people to be treated with respect and dignity. And all that work that I would do on my free time to try to make the world a better place led me, when the woman who was the Ward 6 city councilor was retiring, she called my mom and she was like, "Oh, your daughter just helped stop a garbage transfer station from coming to the neighborhood. I'm calling a bunch of people. Maybe she could think about potentially running." My mother mentioned it to me, and it was just right at the right age. And I thought, why not give it a try? So my husband and I, every day when we got off the train from Boston, because we both had jobs in Boston at the time, would get on our sneakers and knock on doors. And I wound up winning that Ward 6 City Council seat by a big percentage, which shocked everybody. Wow. On the night of the election, we had a lot of previous mayors at the cable access channel talking about the results, and you can watch it if you go back way back to 2005. They were shocked at this person, Michelle DuBois. Who is she? And I was just someone that really wanted to bring my my empathy and my care about the community into a role that I thought we did a lot of good on the outside looking in. When we stopped the garbage transfer station, we got the first negative site assignment for a garbage transfer station in the state from the DEP. And we did that in part through highlighting environmental justice. And environmental justice is a theory that came around in the civil rights movement that says you shouldn't be focusing all your dirty, polluting industry in communities of color. You shouldn't be targeting all your polluting industries in low-income communities, and you shouldn't be targeting all your dirty industry in communities where there are a lot of people that don't speak English as a first language, because that is the target that these bad, dirty, like tire burning facilities. When I was in junior high, they wanted to bring a tire burning facility to the Lithuanian village. We fought against that. We stopped it. Then when I came after college, before I ran for the Ward 6 City Council, we stopped a garbage transfer station. They wanted to bring in household garbage from a very wealthy suburbs like Newton and Wellesley on diesel trucks, dump them into a train, and then ship them out into Ohio and dump all of their household garbage into another poor community's cave. It was insane. So we stopped that. And then when I became a city councilor, they wanted to bring a 350 megawatt natural gas power plant to Ward 4 and have a diesel backup. And I was able to organize the community and work with my neighbors to stop the power plant after 15 years. Now, that isn't all me, but they did sue me for $68 million trying to shut me up, me and around 10 other people. And so we never stopped, because I figured I'll never make $68 million in my lifetime. I'm a grassroots activist at heart. And in my day job, when I was having a day job outside being a state rep, because I'm a full-time state representative right now. I work full-time for the people right now, and for the last 10 years, full-time for the people. I always just try to make sure that people know that they can get in contact with me. If there's something that is bothering you about how you're being treated, to reach out to me and I'll answer it. And so we stopped the natural gas power plant after 15 years. And most recently, there was a business person who was utilizing their land on Howard Street in the Ward 6 area for an illegal grinding construction site. And we were able to get that stopped as well. And at that very site, after we stopped him from doing his illegal, terrible environmental pollution, he wanted to make it permitted. He went to the state and tried to get a legal permit to allow him to do that at that site for infinity. And we said no, we stopped it. And now we're going to have a women's soccer team have their practice fields there because we were able to stop that. And that opened up the opportunity for this woman's, the Boston Legacy, to say we want to have our practice fields there. So these are all good things that I've been working on.
I was talking about Brockton, so we know and we see that some significant changes in the community in Brockton. So, in your own opinion, what are some positive changes you've seen?
So when I grew up in Brockton, there really weren't a lot of groups that were together to fight for justice. There were a lot of religious groups, there were a lot of sports teams, not a lot of people that were really fighting for people that were on the edges. So what I've seen, now we have a professional homeless shelter that's literally set up to help homeless people in dignified ways up on the west side. I helped facilitate that and supported that. We have that structure. So it isn't just someone helping somebody out of their basement. We have a professional structure. So that's better. It's better than just having nothing and having to rely on all the towns from around or Boston to come in and try to save us. We're doing that on our own. We have Coalition for Social Justice that comes and helps the people organize here. The NAACP is a very big influence in the city now. They've been around for like 75 years, so they predate me. But I am a member of that organization. We have Brockton Workers Alliance. We have these groups now that are outside the power structure, that are there made up of residents who want to make our community a better place. And that's something that I don't remember happening in like a more structured way when I was young. So I think that's one way our city has become a lot better, that we have more people that are willing to engage with one another and work together to try to fight for justice in our world.
And are you optimistic about the future of Brockton? If yes, why?
So it's so great because so many people, I introduce myself sometimes as a glass half empty gal. Sometimes I'm a little pessimistic and not trusting because so often I'll see things that seem to be, you think they're going to be great, and then they turn out to be some kind of scam that was just set up to take good people's attention away from the task at hand. So in that way, I worry about what's going to happen to the city, but my opinion as a glass half empty gal is that Brockton is on the upcoming. I really believe it. Our property values are going up. Our rate of business ownership is improving. Our student, we're getting a new high school potentially. We're working to, we've built many new elementary schools. We are desegregated our elementary schools. We are fighting to make sure our world is more just. So in a lot of ways, I think Brockton has a lot of positives. I went to a seminar that talked about Black home ownership. Black people owning homes is very high in Brockton. This is all good. I grew up in a lot of struggle. I grew up very poor, and I grew up in a house that my parents had to work really hard to maintain, and they were able to do it. So I want to make sure Brockton can stay affordable for people so they can have their children, they can afford a home, they are able to make something for themselves and have their own little backyard to make sure their kids turn out to be the way they want, hopefully. Because we can't control anyone, and so many things happen to good people that shouldn't happen. But we need to have the opportunity there for people if they want to make good of their lives, and that they can have a second chance and a third chance to try to improve themselves and make a good life for their families.
City of Champions.
City of Champions.
The name. And personally, what does it mean to you?
Well, I have a chip on my shoulder growing up here in Brockton, and I want to make sure that other people that feel like they are discounted, they are ignored, people don't listen, people don't care about them. I want them to know that I care. And so many people in Brockton care. And that's the beauty of Brockton. The champion of Brockton is that the struggle, the adversity, it builds character, it builds strength. It builds a community full of people that know what real life is. I tell young people growing up in Brockton all the time, you're going to go off into the world and they're going to be very wealthy people, but no one is going to have it on you. You know what the real world is like because you grew up without a silver spoon. You grew up working for everything that you get, and you can do it. This is America. It's the United States. We want to make sure that people can attain the American dream, and that's why I'm in public service, is to help people be like that were from families like my own, struggling families, to be able to have the opportunity they need to make a better life for themselves.
And what continued to motivate you, like, to, after all these years
Right.
in the public service? So what has kept you going and pursue and continue?
So the oppression I see all around me, the oppression, like no one is free when others are oppressed. It's a little magnet I have on my refrigerator, and it's a little magnet, but it has a real meaning. We have to fight every day to make our world a better place, a fairer place. We have to acknowledge that not everybody is treated the same, and we need to face that and challenge it. And with the Trump administration, oh my gosh, he is just coming down on communities like Brockton. I believe that he wants to bring, he wants to get rid of our food system. He keeps changing the laws to hurt our food system. He keeps changing the laws to hurt poor people. Right now I have people calling me that are so concerned about their SNAP being turned off because they have to recertify every 6 months now, and they didn't realize that, and there are all these new bureaucratic hurdles. I have calls from senior citizens who are so nervous about their PCA because they had TPS status, and President Trump and the Republican Party are killing TPS, and now they're going to target these beautiful individuals who came here fleeing all this oppression and violence, and now they're going to target them for the internet clicks of racists who want to see ICE hurting people of color, and it's like surreal. So right now I'm really focused on working collaboratively with my community to make sure everybody knows that this is really happening, that we welcome people through the temporary protected status opportunity, and now we're just pulling that rug out from under them, and we're threatening to make them a violent target of this ICE regime. So that working up at the state legislature to let them know that we need to do everything we can do to protect our folks in this situation is important to me. What motivates me is when I see moms have nowhere to go. I'll pick them up, I drive them places, I get them, help them apply for emergency housing. My aide is a social worker. That's why I hired her, because I knew Brockton needed that. And so I'm really motivated by empathy and by community and by my neighbors to try to make the world a better place, a fairer place. And we can start in Brockton because Brockton is amazing. Brockton is the only majority non-white city that the majority of people in our city are Black. That is an amazing achievement, that we have a community that's diverse, that we respect one another. We can be a role model for that in our world. And so that's really the goal for me, is to really show everybody that we can all be different and still have a wonderful, flourishing community. We don't have to live in our little boxes out in the suburbs and only care about ourselves. We can live in a community together in an urban center, and it can be supportive, and that's the ideal.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. I'm originally from Haiti, as you mentioned about the TPS situation. So in terms of your influence, your scope of work, and is there any coalition, anything that in perspective that might help people, to be informed about like how they should go about their situation under these circumstances?
It's so hard, right? Because I'm not a lawyer, and even lawyers, who knows with our flighty president what's going to come next. But I I know that I'm working with a coalition of groups right now, Coalition for Social Justice, Brockton Workers United, the Luce node or hub in Brockton. We are going to be putting on a informational discussion, and it's being planned this week, so there'll be a date coming up. At the State House, I worked to get $500 million allocated to immigration legal assistance for folks that are in this situation and other situations involving immigration status. We need a lot more to be done. During our Haitian crisis, where there were many people having nowhere to live, we still have that going on, but not like prior. I helped many families get into emergency housing so they and their children weren't sleeping in the streets. Up at the State House, I feel as though I'm a voice for people that are struggling very hard because our city is so affected by poverty and so affected by the issues that come along with poverty that is really what I've chosen to be my role at the State House, and I'm really focused on those issues that are most pressing to our residents. And these aren't just Haitian folks. There are a lot of people that have lived many generations in Brockton who I help, whose family have lived many generations in Brockton, who have kids and find themselves to be homeless and need assistance, or in difficult situations with domestic violence and need some direction. There's so many problems. So focusing on that, and I'm, of course, in partnership with Haitian Community Partners. I respect them. I work with them quite often. And we can do what we can do in this world. And I suggest that any Haitian person that is in an issue with TPS, that they reach out to MIRA, a Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Association. You can, MIRA, you can look that up online. They have some very good informational documents in your native language. You can always call me and I can help connect you. My number is 774-274-1344. But it is a very difficult time. I have a lot of people very worried about our healthcare system, our nursing homes, our seniors that are living on their own. I wonder sometimes, did Trump take away TPS so we wouldn't have any PCAs, and then he can start institutionalizing disabled people like he says on the television that he wants to do, and bring us back to like the 40s and 50s where disabled people are locked away? Like, is there a bigger, broader plan that he's following? And right now it's the Haitian folks that are under the gun of him, but is it next going to be the disabled folks that so many in the Haitian community care for? Because there's so many people in the Haitian community that are in our healthcare system. I'm not trying to generalize. It's just I go to nursing homes. I have constituents that are seniors. And, I would say 6 times out of 10, the person that's caring for them is a beautiful Haitian person that is really caring and dedicated. So I just wonder how this all wraps in to trying to really hurt the people that are struggling to the benefit of very wealthy people that don't live in Brockton, don't live anywhere around us. They don't come to our barbecues. They are not part of our vacation plans. But it seems like there's a big fight between people that are struggling and very wealthy people. And I know what side I'm on. I'm solidly on the side of the working person, the low-income person, the person that's really struggling, the people that actually live in the city of Brockton.
Yes, all the viewers, you're still listening to All About Brockton, the show we bring to you to give you information regarding what's going on in Brockton. So we still have with us the state representative, Michelle DuBois, and we're going to continue with the conversation that we have. So what are the top legislative issues you are focusing on during this term?
So this term, it's a 2-year term, so it's 2026 right now, and it started in 2025. And so over this last term, I've really focused on the vacant lot at the corner of Crescent Street and Quincy Street. It's the old Christo's restaurant lot. It is vacant now. It's around 3 acres of land that's vacant. And right next to it, it's the old Massasoit Conference Center. And that's also around 3 acres that are vacant. And I filed a bill that would redevelop that site. And that went through and it's now law. So the vacant site that used to be Crystal's Restaurant is being handed over to Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities operates through rented space in downtown Brockton next to the MBTA train tracks right behind the Brockton Area Transit bus station. There is a little metal building that Catholic Charities rents from. This past year, the owner of that building raised their rent 3 times. So it was tripled their rent cost. And that's very difficult to sustain over the long term. So they did sign the lease, so they're solid for another 3 to 5 years. I can't remember if it was a 3 or 5 year lease. Okay. So they are paying triple to stay there. They offer ESOL, they offer education, like job education, job training. They're going to offer daycare at their new site. They offer counseling and support, and they offer a food pantry. At the new site, the food pantry is going to look like a grocery store. It's not going to be the way it is now, which is really inadequate for a city of our size. And then they're going to build 4 floors of affordable housing above it. So there will be 40 units of affordable housing above it. This is what is laid out in the legislation, the economic development legislation that I wrote and I filed and I got passed this session. And then the other 3-acre lot that used to have the Massasoit Conference Center on it, through my legislation, is being transferred to the city of Brockton. So the city of Brockton and the mayor and the city council and their economic development team will plan about how they want to redevelop that site, and they will do it in partnership with the state. So there's still state oversight. It isn't like the state's taking their hands off of it and saying, do what you want, Brockton. They're saying, I'm taking my hands off of it. You live here in Brockton. You're the leaders of this city. Come up with a good plan to redevelop this site and put it out on the market and make it tax sustaining, or what would you like to do there? I have a feeling that they want to open up a conference center that used to be there and put that out for RFP, but that isn't, within my control. What was within my control was fighting for and laying out a plan to have that site now be a benefit for our city. So we're going to have Catholic Charities there with it's a $42 million project that I was able to bring to the east side of the city. And it's right across the street from 300 units of senior and low-income housing. So now they'll just have to walk across the street and get the services that they need and the help they need. And it's going to bring a lot of people that work and have disposable income into the neighborhood to support the businesses around it. It's no longer going to be an empty lot. There's going to be community space within the facility for people to use that are from the community. They want to have meetings or have some kind of event. There's going to be that type of space there. This all started many years ago when I wanted to make the conference center a community center. And I shopped it around to many nonprofits. And it's very easy for people to kill things when they don't want it. Mm-hmm. It's not so easy to make it happen, but it's very easy for people to kill things. So for a few sessions, there were people that said that they supported it in public, but behind the scenes were killing the project. And so I like to say, I take lemons and I make lemonade. So I tried very hard to get that community center there. And when I realized that the powers that be were never going to let that happen, I thought, all right, let's think about what we can do here. And in the end, I think it's a much better project. It went from potentially a $2 million project at that site to a $42 million project that's going to have housing. So this is the beauty of leaving yourself open. I left myself open. I never gave up. I was resilient. I was dedicated. I shopped this around to many people. And then we found a strong, financially capable and dedicated group that wants to do something that we all need. Okay. So that was probably my biggest success this session. But over the last 10 years, what I'm most proud of is the work that I did on the Student Opportunity Act. Mm-hmm. The Student Opportunity Act was a statewide effort. So it isn't just State Representative Michelle DuBois. Mm-hmm. I was working in partnership and in community with many, many, many people. Okay. And we were able to pass the Student Opportunity Act. And why am I so proud of the Student Opportunity Act is because the Student Opportunity Act benefited Brockton and cities like Brockton the most. Okay. we took an injustice, and that injustice was inadequate education funding. I grew up in a time in 91, Brockton High was terrible. I tell people I didn't have the same experience as you. We weren't funding our schools. It was in a terrible disorder. I was able to make it through, but I don't want other kids to have to go through that. So I really focused on that part. One of my bills was brought into that omnibus bill. My name is on the jacket of the Student Opportunity Act. And the Student Opportunity Act has brought in over $100 million annually to the city of Brockton, to the Brockton Public Schools. In 2017, Brockton Public Schools was getting $177 million in base education funding from the state. In 2027, this coming fiscal year, the city of Brockton, the Brockton Public Schools, will be getting $288 million in base education funding. That doesn't include like $50 million they get in grants and some other funding from different sources, but that's $100 million that they can never take away from us, and that's going to come to us every year in a compounding fashion. Okay. And now we have another review, because the Student Opportunity Act was a 7-year income increase to certain school districts, and Brockton benefited greatly, like I said. And now we're going to have another time where we're developing what we're going to do in the future years. So we've gotten to that point that Apex, we've adjusted how our students are going to be funded. So our funding is going to be increasing even if nothing happened, but not 50 million, 25 million, 100 million. It's going to be going up in a more fair fashion, but still not good enough. So now there's another review of the education system. And there are winners and losers in legislation. And I want you to send me back so Brockton can be a winner again. We were a winner in the Student Opportunity Act. And in this next round of student education, I will tell you, I have a track record of bringing in more money. I have a focus on student education. It's important to me, and it's something that I'm going to focus on. So I was proud of that in my time at the State House. This past year, everyone can get earmarks at the State House. Okay. I have an opponent that says he doesn't think my earmarks are good enough, but he really hasn't done anything. So I'm proud of my earmarks because I know my colleagues. I see what my colleagues get for earmarks, and I'm always at the 75% level of everybody's earmarks. I'm getting good earmarks comparative to my colleagues. Mm-hmm. But where do we focus those earmarks? Because you get like 200,000, 300,000 every budget cycle. If there's a supplemental budget, you might be able to get 500,000 for snow equipment, which is what I work with my colleagues to do on a supplemental budget that just went through recently and was signed into law, and will bring $500,000 to Brockton DPWs for them to hire more to purchase more snow equipment for next winter. But where I've really focused my effort is in Brockton's playgrounds. There are 7 playgrounds in the city of Brockton that, through my time at the state legislature, I have gotten earmarks that added up to fixing up the playground entirely. Most recently, I secured $250,000 to redo the 3 basketball courts at the Davis Elementary School. They used to be just a broken down tennis court at the back of the lot. And I was looking for a new playground project and driving around to the different playgrounds, and this really stood out. It's something that we could fix up without a ton of money, and it would make a big impact on kids like myself whose families aren't rich, and the playgrounds are their summer break. That's all I had. And I have a goal to make sure that every single playground in the city of Brockton in my district is fixed up and dignified. I did it at the Downey School. I got hundreds of thousands of dollars for that playground. I did it at the playground in the middle of Hovenden Ave and Winter Street, McKinley Park. I did it, there are so many playgrounds. East Middle School, that playground area was funded through earmarks that I got. I've gotten every year money to fix up the baseball fields for the Little League and the youth in the city. And every budget cycle, I get money for summer camp programs, for the Yep We Can program. Recently, I've been able to secure earmarks for the high school's drone program so they can purchase more drone equipment and be able to win like they've been winning all across the state, our students. And we might not be able to afford a $20,000 drone, but if parents and adults get together and get the kids the resources they need, our kids in Brockton shine. They shine and they win on a state stage with very wealthy children. So I've been focused on that. So this is how I've been focused. I tell people what I've tried to fund with earmarks so they can see. It isn't me just telling you that I care about these things. These are the things when push comes to shove and it's time to get earmarks. I focus on areas that help youth, the areas that help our kids have a safe place to be. When I heard there was no free swimming at the Cosgrove Pool last summer, I got an earmark to make that happen. And then I worked with my colleagues in the legislature to create an annual state fund that you can apply so you can offer free swimming lessons across the state in different communities. So these are the areas that I really try to influence, and it's areas where we've had students drowned. We want them to be able to swim, and they have the right to have a free opportunity to learn how to swim. We have to provide that for them. That's our job. When there were 5 deaths at the corner of Boundary and North Quincy Street, I work with the neighbors to get the state to fund a roundabout there. In a span of 3 years, 5 different people died at that intersection. So obviously there was something wrong there. And we were able to get the funding, and now there's a roundabout there. And people do complain about the roundabout, but not one person has died at that intersection since that roundabout has been put in. And I got a call from a gentleman who lived on Boundary at 2 a.m. He woke me up, and he said he was holding a girl who was his daughter's age as she died in the middle of the night at that intersection. So it was important, and these are the things that I focus on as your state representative.
Okay, you talk about many legislative that you've been working on. So let me ask you about the mental health and substance
Yes.
abuse. So in terms of access to healthcare that continue to affect many communities. So what's some legislative actions that you have supported in this area?
So I sit up at the State House. I am the vice chair of substance use, mental health, and recovery. And so I sit into hearings every year that are all about ways we can improve our mental health and our substance use services here in the city. I've gotten earmarks to support this. I've supported the 211 phone call system. I've supported expanded healthcare coverage for mental health issues. When you have one annual mental health checkup a year is now going to be covered by your insurance, where before it was nothing. I've supported expanding services in our city. I'm a great ally to the Brockton Neighborhood Health Center and our hospitals. I have regular meetings with them talking about the situations that they have in our mental health facilities in the city and across the city. High Point, I go visit there. There are a lot of youth programs in the city that help, that try to do outreach to this community and try to make life better for them. There's this opioid settlement money. Brockton has $3 million right now in opioid settlement money, and I've been focused and pushing the city of Brockton to open up some sort of a day facility for the folks in the city so they can go make connections with people that might turn into them going to recovery. They can take a shower, they can do laundry, they can try to connect with people that are going to give them what they need so they can overcome this terrible situation that they find themselves in. I am an ally on all these things. So I do try. I know that it's most critical. It's not just our physical health. Our mental health has so much to do with how we live in life, how we can get out in the world, how we can communicate with others. And everyone should know that there's no shame in asking for help. Everybody needs help at some time. I sit on the community board with the Brockton Multi-Service Center on Quincy Street. That's a DMH program, and there's a lot of mental health services that go on there that I help facilitate people to get access to, that I make sure that there's funding for. I fight for that when there's funding difficulties, like DTA, Department of Transitional Assistance, often has people they're helping that have mental health issues. And when the state wasn't funding that line item enough, I reached out and I made sure that the chair of Ways and Means knew about it, and he explained to me that that money was going to be in a supplemental budget later in the year, and I was able to communicate that to the mental health workers. I have the 1199 healthcare workers endorsement. I have SEIU 1199, SEIU 509, NAGE. I have the endorsement of these folks that are working in the community, and I'll never give up trying to help make sure that the mental health services are facilitated here in the city. So at the high school, I've been a big advocate to bring in Brockton Neighborhood Health Center to have a wing there. So Brockton is one of the only big cities, one of the only big school districts that does not have like the Neighborhood Health Center having services at them. That's been a failing of the school committee. That's been a failing of the city. And I've heard in the background, because everything is so, nobody wants to tell anything what they really feel in the public, but I do. I've heard in the background that that was strategically stopped because there were some school committee members that didn't want girls to get family planning services, which is crazy. Because a neighborhood health center in a high school does way more than give out birth control pills. You know, they help kids with a range of health issues. And the fact that there's some backward thinking around that at our school committee level, attributed to my opponent, so maybe ask him about it, is really disgusting. But you know, they're not gonna admit that. So when the Boys and Girls Club came and I was on the city council when the city council transferred that land to the Boys and Girls Club. I was a Ward 6 city councilor, very proud of that vote. I mean, I didn't do it alone. There were a lot of people in the private sector that made that happen, but I was there, and when time came to support the Boys and Girls Club, I voted yes.
Okay.
Fast forward. For the last 6 years, the Boys and Girls Club want to expand again. And in order to expand again, they need the school committee to take a vote. And my opponent in this race has spent the last 6 years holding that vote up. Literally, all they needed to do was vote to allow a certain thing, an easement, or a certain thing that they needed to do under their power. They refused and held it up for 6 years. And if you watch the meetings, they clearly say, well, maybe the Boys and Girls Club should leave. They don't pay taxes anyways. Maybe the Boys and Girls Club should leave, and then we can get a business to buy that land. They say these things. The Boys and Girls Club does a lot for the city, taxes or not. They do a lot for our kids, keeping our community safe. And when, after 6 years, when the city council said enough, we're going to create a home rule petition that goes up to the State House, to me and my colleagues at the State House, that takes away the power from the school committee so we can get this Boys and Girls Club, because they were threatening on leaving after 6 years. Then the school committee took a vote. So the school committee voted, and some of the members voted to support the Boys and Girls Club expansion, but my opponent voted no. He had the opportunity to vote to support the Boys and Girls Club, and his answer was no. And do we want someone up at the State House that sees that wonderful benefit that the Boys and Girls Club gives and votes no? I don't know why we would give that person a promotion. And why I say this is because I grew up poor. These types of services were helpful to me. I don't think he had that same upbringing. So his affluenza, as I call it, causes him not to see what's important to people that are struggling. And the Boys and Girls Club in our city is important to people that are struggling, and middle-class families and kids that just want to engage with other kids. So that's an area that's around mental health that I also supported, because we have to have kids have a place to go. We can't just have them all be sitting in their bedroom like I did.
I get that, and I understand that. So Brockton is one of the gateway cities in Massachusetts. So, and Brockton facing unique opportunity and challenges.
Yes.
What additional state support do gateway cities need to thrive?
So I'm on the Gateway Cities Caucus. I'm part of that caucus. I've been supporting changing how the UGA, unrestricted governmental aid to municipalities, is handed out. That equation was from like the 90s, and it was more based on like who was in power at that point up at the State House. And since then, every increase in that line item has been based on this unfair calculation. So I've been partnering with the members of the Gateway City Caucus to change that. We're hoping that we can get that done. If I don't think it's going to happen this term, but we can keep fighting for that. So that needs to change. That the way that the lottery revenue is handed out is another focus that I've been working on with the Gateway Cities Caucus. So these are two issues. They are not going to be solved by the end of this year, I'm sorry, but these are issues that I have been focusing on, and we've been making some headway. The HDIP money. This is money to facilitate more housing, affordable housing, market rate housing in our city. The HDIP money for Gateway Cities has increased exponentially. I've been working on that. I worked on getting an earmark in a budget, a bond bill to clean up the CSX railway site down by Catholic Charities, right by the train station and the old police station, so we can have a linear park there, clean up PCBs and other contaminants that are right in the middle of the neighborhood, and then put in 1,300 units of housing there, so we can have an active and lively downtown. This has been a focus of mine. This is something that I've gotten help through the Gateway Cities Caucus on that. I've met with the Lieutenant Governor on this, having the governor to release this $6 million so the cleanup can start. When we had that meeting, she said, well, this is great, but we should have the proponent also apply for this money through like the brownfields or through the one-stop shop, through these state-funded programs that are funded through the bond bill, and then passed out to people that are doing work in our community to improve our housing and to improve different infrastructure projects. And so I'm working on that. So I've worked really closely with the members of the Gateway City Caucus to try to improve funding for our community. And I believe that I've been successful.
Okay, good. Resident in Brockton, I believe they have concern about, concerns about safety and economic development.
Mm-hmm.
So in your own opinion, how investment should be balanced in both?
Right. Well, as a state legislator, I worked to get the post commission and the post agency created, which is a police officer oversight. It allows the state to have oversight over police officers permitting. So if there is unethical behavior, racism, unjust treatment of residents, they now have a statewide agency to go to. And so far, I believe it's been 2 Brockton police officers that have lost their ability to protect and serve, because that should be how everybody that is a police officer behaves. And I know that 90% of the police officers are doing exactly that. So I respect police and I support police, because without police, folks like myself, we'd all be in big trouble. Folks like you would be in big trouble if we just lived in a community with chaos. So I support police as long as there is some way, if there are bad actors, because we are all human and no one is perfect, and bad things happen to good people, as long as there is an avenue so we can make sure that there's some oversight to make sure that those interactions are legal and that they're respectful. And they should be respectful both ways. About economic development. As a state rep, I had that big economic development bill I just talked about. That's going to bring in $42 million. I got a $6 million bond appropriation that I'm trying to get released for the CSX rail yard so we can redo that. That will be real economic development. What's happened there on the Christos lot, that's real. That's going to happen. That's 100% real economic development. Massasoit Community Center. In my time as state rep, I was able to secure from the state over $40 million to redo their life science building. That was a multiple year project. So first, Christine Canavan, who was the state representative before me, she got a bond appropriation for $23 million to go to create a life science center at the Massasoit campus. With the new governor, politics happens, and sometimes new governors don't want to follow through on the previous governor's goals. And so he kind of pushed that to the side and wasn't going to release the money. And so then I stepped up my efforts, and we worked very hard with Massasoit, my colleagues in the legislature, the other representatives and the senator, to make sure that the state knew that this was a priority for us. And we were able to get the state under Governor Baker to award over $40 million to Massasoit Community College to create a life science center on Massasoit campus. So they're going to they've already started this, redo their liberal arts building into life sciences. Then they're going to go to the old life science building, and right now they're in the stage of turning that into regular classroom space. And that's going to open so many seats in the medical tech science field where we know our students are going to be able to get good paying jobs. And so I have this vision of like, the single mom living at one of the units on the Christos lot, and her child going to Massasoit for life sciences, and she working at Brockton Hospital, which is the next block over. You can walk to both of those places. So we have this economic corridor that's going on. And so that's economic development. That is setting people up for success, that they have handy. They could walk to Massasoit and be able to go and get a degree that will allow them to support a family. So that's been a focus of my economic development as well. Down at on the south side, we see the Campello high-rise. The Campello high-rise is being rebuilt. There are, how many units? 600 units? There are 2 high-rises that are 10 stories tall. They're going to replace those two 10-story high-rises with 3 buildings that are 8 feet tall. 8 stories tall. They're going to pull all the buildings away from the river, and that's going to open up green space for the residents that live there. All this construction is economic development. We have people working on the site. We have people going out in the community and eating, paying money to go to the restaurants, being able to be active in the community. Then, through that economic development of the construction site, we're going to have dignified housing for our residents, and that is so critical. So there was a moment there. And a lot of this is based on the efforts of the Brockton Housing Authority. And I've been an ally to them, but they have done, 90% of the work. But there were moments there where the Housing Authority had asked for this money, this bonding money that they needed from the state, that came through the state from the federal government. And they had been denied, and they had not gotten it. And then there was an issue with the electricity in one of the buildings where there was a flood. And I took that time. I called over to the Commissioner of Housing and Healthy Livable Communities, HLC, which is now the new Housing and Economic Development section of our state government. And I called the commissioner and had a meeting, and had all the residents there, and the executive director of the Housing Authority was there, and we were able to convince him to release that money to be able to get this project underway. That is economic development. That's economic development. It's housing improvements. So I'm a big advocate of economic development, and this is the way that I've done it so far.
Okay, so you've decided to run again, and why? Why you have made that decision?
Well, I love being your state representative. I can tell you that. I get a lot of personal gratification through helping people. I'm an empathetic person. I hired a social worker who's also from Brockton. We spend most of our days helping individual people that are from Brockton through some of the biggest crises in their lives. And I feel an obligation to the constituents to continue that work. I have had a huge success with finally getting this Christos Economic Development Project underway. I would like to see that through. And there are many other things that I would like to work on, like the student education funding. I already have a proven ability to do so because Brockton was a big winner in this last legislation, and I want to continue to do so. So I feel as though I have a lot still to offer. I want to focus on making sure that, Brockton has the third highest asthma hospitalization rate in the state for children. I want to make sure that the state remembers that we need to make sure that our city becomes cleaner, that we are not the target of everybody's pollution, that we don't want you to burn poop over our heads. So as your state representative, I got the 1950s poop incinerator closed. I worked on that. We don't want them to open that back up because recently they got the ear of some folks in our city, and they wanted to bring incineration of our poop back, and they want to regionalize the plant, and they want to burn everybody's poop over our heads. So that is something that I partnered with the Ward 4 school city councilor, Susan Nicastro, and the residents to stop. And if I'm your state representative, I'm going to continue to doing things like this that make sure that where our priorities are, we want a clean, respectful place to live that have services for people, and we are a city, and we're going to have city problems. And we have to not just disrespect people who are going through very difficult parts of their lives because we live in a city, and that's always going to be a city problem. We need to try to help solve those problems. We need to try to help give a ladder so people can help themselves out of those difficult issues. We need to not be embarrassed of struggle. People struggle. People struggle. That's life. And especially when you were not born with a silver spoon in your mouth. There's going to be struggle and obstacles. And a city should be an environment for people that are going through that to be able to better their lives. And that's the goal. And that's why I'm running again, to make sure that Brockton stays that type of a city, that type of democratic, caring about others, wanting to make sure that we are rising all boats and not just the select few who are connected or whose cousin is the mayor or who's, whatever personal family connection they have, good for you. But everyone should be treated that same way and not special treatment. So that's, I started out saying I got a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, and I do, because I've never benefited from that. Of course, being a white woman, I have privilege because the society has put that on me because of the racism and the terrible things that go on in our world. But as a woman, I also experience those obstacles of prejudice and bias. And as someone that grew up poor and understands what it is to struggle and the indignity, regardless of what you look like, in being poor and rich people and wealthy people really putting you down, those are the things that I want to fight against up at the State House for you. So that's why I'm running for re-election. And I hope that people would consider giving me their vote on September 1.
Okay, we are at the end, of our conversation today. We say thank you for our platform. And the last part we would like you to talk about, it's like your message to the resident of Brockton, to the voters who's gonna go to the polls. So what is your message to them?
To the voters that are going to go to the polls on September 1, I hope that you look at my record. I have, I'm going to be reaching out to you if you wanted to volunteer, if you wanted to ask some questions. You could always call me. I gave my telephone number. It's 774-274-1344. You can text me. We can talk about issues that are important to you. I'm a known equation. In my 11 years as a state representative, I've always fought for you. I've never been in any sort of nothing negative. I have been admirable, honest, straightforward, and dedicated to the people that actually live here. No special interest, no relative, no business interest am I bringing with me to be your state representative. I'm here for you, and I hope that when you look at what I've done over the last many years, you will continue to give me your vote. I ask humbly for your vote, and regardless of what happens in September, So my husband passed away in 2024. I had a niece who died at 15 of osteosarcoma recently in the last 4 years. There's been a lot of negativity, but I say this because I want you to know through all that, I've always known that what we do at the state legislature helps people. And that's what I want to do for you. I want to help. I want to be an honest broker. I am an honest broker. And I just ask for your vote on September 1.
Okay, all the viewers, you have been listening to All About Brockton, and we have had with us State Rep Michelle DuBois. Thank you one more time. And all the viewers, I will see you in the next show.